Clicking on this video lets me know that you just picked up a Pocket 4K and you want to rig it out so you can start taking on these big commercial jobs or just get the jobs that you currently have suited for your camera. And when you pick up the Pocket 4K, this camera sometimes feels like it's not ready to be used on big productions. But I'm gonna show you how I set up my Pocket 4K to be ready for anything that's thrown at me from commercials, music videos, run and gun, and documentary. Let's jump into this video where I break down my Pocket 4K cinema rig. So if you have a Blackmagic Pocket 4K or if you're just looking to learn more about cameras, go ahead and subscribe to my channel because I'm gonna keep dropping tutorials this month, 2 a week, trying to get to 10K, so help me get there by subscribing right now. Now with that said, let's get started in this video on what we came here for, to learn about the Pocket 4K rig that I built. Now this is a build out that I've been using and some of these parts are rehoused from other things. So let me let you know, one of my biggest fears when I started rigging out this camera was that I was gonna buy components that I wasn't gonna use, I was gonna waste a bunch of money. But I will tell you one thing, when you start rigging out cameras, you will be able to take parts and start using them for other parts, for other cameras. As you grow, some of those same parts that you use on your Pocket 4K, when you go to the 6K or if you go to a 6K Pro, you can always use those parts again. So don't be afraid to spend the money on these parts. These rigs are not fully bought in kits. Well, let me take that back. You can buy kits that are fully ready to go. I personally don't recommend buying those kits because a lot of the times they're not suited for everything that you want to do. The best thing sometimes is to do it in this order. The first thing I would purchase is the cage. Make sure you find a cage that works very well for you and what you want it to do. With that being the type of ports or hot shoes that you need, some screw mounts, and just attachments. What type of attachments can go onto that cage? For me, I personally purchased the half cage with quick release for my Pocket Cinema. And for me, that was because I wanted a cage that I could quick release and throw onto a gimbal. At this time, the only gimbal that I was using was the Ronin S, which cannot handle my camera with lenses, cage, and all the mounts on it. I wanted something that if I wanted to unplug from my cage, take all the ports off, pull it out and drop it on the gimbal, I could. And this cage really worked for me. Also, this cage has mounts underneath when you pull off the quick release that you can offset the camera on the gimbal. This is very important because if you've tried to put on a Blackmagic camera onto a Ronin S, you can't without offsetting the plate because the Blackmagic is really wide. It's built like almost like a football shaped camera and it will hit the sidearm of the Ronin. So with this quick release plate on the bottom, you're able to offset it on top of the Manfrotto plate that comes with the Ronin, and now you're able to use it. So this makes it really quick with switching in between ways that you want to shoot. Now the second component for me, and this is very important component, is the SSD hard drive holder. This holder allows you to hold a SSD drive on your cage for your Blackmagic Pocket 4K. And what this does for you is give you longer record times with memory. Now for me, this is a no-brainer. I think everyone should have this. Shooting to this hard drive can be a little bit safer and quicker when you're going to load off your footage. Now my next component is something that I like to have on all my cameras, and it's a top handle. Top handles are important to get low shots, using it to balance your camera when handhelling, and also like just having an extra mounting point for some accessories. The top handle I'm using is a small rig top handle, but this top handle actually came from one of my first cages I purchased for my Canon M50. That's one good thing about these parts when you're buying for rigs is that you can't interchange them out between camera cages, camera rigs, and that way you always have a chance to reuse something and you're never wasting your money. Now the one thing I like about this top handle, you have 2 hot shoe points on it. So sometimes I will mount the monitor to the back of the camera and actually put a mic on the front if I'm doing more documentary run and gun style shooting. Now that brings me to the base of this camera. And this base of this camera is built with a couple different parts. Starting with the main base. My main base is the ICANN dual 15mm rod base plate. And this was bought when I was shooting back on a Canon 60D. So like I said, these parts never get old, and I'm still using it now. So that's over 10-year-old part that I purchased that I can still use. Also on the top, I have a quick release Manfrotto plate, and this one's actually by Newer. Like I say, components can be mixed and used all over, so never feel like you're stuck with one brand. Get what works for you and buy what you know or you've heard that has the best quality for you. Now this is not mandatory, but I would recommend it, and most people who own a Blackmagic knows how bad they are with battery life. Like, they suck the energy out of battery. One of the most must-have components, I would say, of this rig is this battery plate. I recommend having this battery plate, and I actually went with the tilted one just because I wanted more of a battery plate that lays flat. I wanted my battery horizontal so I would be able to still see the back of my camera. Also, this helps a lot with balancing out the camera. If you have a longer lens on the front, that laying out battery is going to allow it to give you kind of a balance in your rig, which really helps on your handheld shots. Also, you can see a lot of the times in this shot where I actually use that battery plate laying back over my shoulder as if it's a shoulder rig. Now, I'm not gonna go through all the cables that I use on this, but it's just basically D-taps to power cables, D-taps to power cables to the monitors, and HDMI cables. Now, the last component of this mount, and to me, it's not as important, but I would recommend it, and that is the matte box. The matte box is very helpful for when you wanna drop in ND filters, shade out light, or things like that. It also just makes your camera look very good and professional. So I will recommend this for people who's gonna be shooting in different situations. Being able to drop in an ND filter and get that stop down on your camera so you're not blowing out your image or sacrificing your depth of field. This is gonna be very helpful. And like I say, just look how it makes the camera look. And for the monitor I use on this camera, it is one of the FieldWorld's 5-inch monitors. I'm gonna link it below. This monitor just helps me with this camera because it doesn't have a flipping LCD screen. I recommend having a monitor. It's also helpful if you want to have somebody else looking at your screen. And I actually went with a 5-inch monitor, same size as the screen that's on the back of the Blackmagic, and it allows me to get that direct look at the monitor when it's in a location that I can't look directly at the screen. Now I recommend you think about the shoots that you've done in the past and what you're planning on shooting in the future, and build out your cage. If you need somewhere to put a mic, if you know that SD card is not gonna have enough memory, then these are components that you need to look into buying onto your cage. Remember, your camera is your tool in this filmmaking art world. Get your paintbrush the way you want to do it. Make your signature. You don't want your images and your style to come off as someone else, so figure out what works for you. And with that said, I hope this helped y'all out. If you have any questions, make sure to leave them below in the comments, and I'll make sure to answer them. If you want to recommend anything that I may need to add to my rig, let me know, because I'm willing to try out new things. I know I've been talking about the Blackmagic a lot, and that's because this camera has just been, and that's just because so many people been asking me questions about this camera. Yes, I did just purchase the Komodo, and I will be dropping more videos on that also. I just want to make sure I help this community out in the questions that I've been asked. So if you have any questions about any of the cameras that you see on my channel in the background, or any type of equipment that you see me use on my Instagram page, just let me know, because I'm willing to review any of them. Like I said, we have 2 videos coming out a week now for the next 90 days to try to get to 10K. So come on, bring those questions in. It gives me more content to make. It's just the community that we need to build and help each other grow. So let's do that. Make sure to subscribe. 10K, we're on the way, and peace.